Hey, what's up, vinyl community? It's Tone, and I'm back to do another thread really quickly. This thread is called the Experimental Music Thread, and it has been initiated by Alex over at the channel Motorik247. If you watch Alex, you know that Alex ventures in very deeply into the avant-garde, the eclectic, the obscure, experimental, hence the title. But it doesn't mean that if you haven't ventured into that music and you don't have a selection of that type of music in your collection, you can still do this, I believe. So, you know, the example that Alex gave, of course, is our releases that are very in the obscure, in the avant-garde, etc., etc. The only other one I've seen is Dom over at Seeking a Thread, and Dom, he kind of did that, but he made it a little bit more palatable for people who don't dive deep into the areas that Alex dives into. What I wanted to do is kind of balance it out. As I wanted to balance it out even more, just kind of show you that, you know, you can do this if you put some thought to it, and it's kind of a cool thread. So I have a list. It's of 8 prompts, and I'm going to start really quickly with the first one. The first one is to show an album with improvised music. And so I picked Wildflowers 1. I've shown Wildflowers before. I think I showed number 4 because it was VCLT from Brandon over at Mr. Hall of Fame. And it completed my the collection of the 5 issues that are in the series. Wildflowers, the New York Loft Jazz Sessions. They have series or volume 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I needed 4 to complete the series, and I got that when Brandon was in town. He picked that up for me. Fantastic series. Great time in jazz, mid-70s, mid-late 70s, when jazz really wanted to break away from fusion and kind of go into, this is going to sound kind of corny, but a secret place. So they would gather in these lofts in New York City, and you would get various artists who were in the underground, but semi-known, etc. And they would get together and they would just jam and improvise. And these, a lot of free jazz, but very palatable, actually. And excellent record. So this is my example for an album with improvisational music. Wildflowers 1. Second one is an album featuring Moog synthesizer. This one was hard because I have a ton of stuff with Moog. And so I just went into Discogs into my collection and I typed in Moog. I pressed enter and a bunch of shit came up. And first thing I saw was David Sanchez. David Sanchez, one of my favorite jazz fusion artists from the mid-70s through the early 80s. He was on Epic Records for the most part. David Sanchez. This is David Sanchez and Tone, not me. I don't think I was born when this particular album was out. Maybe a couple years later. But anyway, this is 1976 on Epic. David Sanchez and Tone, and the album is Transformation, The Speed of Love. Transformation, The Speed of Love. Fantastic jazz fusion album. David Sanchez is a jazz guitarist, but he's predominantly a keyboardist of many sorts, and he plays variations of keyboarded instruments, including acoustic piano, various synthesizers, including offerings of really good Moog synthesizers. So I chose that for number 2. Number 3 is choose an album with an example of field recorded music. I chose a band that I don't have the vinyl for. I should. I don't know why I haven't picked it up yet. But a fantastic band called the Acorn. The album is called No Ghost. The Acorn is an alternative, very poetic, alternative rock band with hints of neo-folk, psych, and even tad bits of shoegaze. The entire album was written and mostly recorded at a cabin on the Lake Charon in Quebec, in Canada, and that's the lake. That in a cabin somewhere in there where it was written and recorded, and a lot of the instrumentation was field recorded outside of the cabin. So I chose that. That one was hard, for me. That was a little bit more difficult because when you put in field recording, unless they've specified field recording in a release on Discogs, it's not going to come up. Something with the word field might come up, or the word recording, so it kind of leads you off. Anyway, the Acorn No Ghost, fantastic record. Number 4, an album with drone sounds or droney sounds. Again, most people are going to be thinking something eclectic and very obscure, avant-garde, whether it be rock or punk, like the Melvins, or, well, the Melvins really don't do droney, but Merzbow, things like that. I wanted to go a little bit more mainstream, not super mainstream, but a little bit more commercial to show you that you don't have to go to dive that deep in order to do this thread. And I chose Love and Rockets. And that's the Seventh Dream of Teenage Heaven. This is their debut record on Beggar's Banquet. I think it's 85. This album came out in 1985 or 86. I believe it's 85. And this is arguably, and I do stress the word arguably because a lot of people want to argue this, but if you really break down the album and what they were doing, I mean, Daniel Ash, there was plenty of examples of Daniel Ash staring at his shoes, shoegaze. But arguably the very, very first example of shoegaze styled music would be this album, and even before the Jesus and Mary Chain and stuff like that. And this is fantastic. So this has examples of droney feel, or ethereal droniness, maybe not direct droniness in terms of an instrument, although David J's bass, or Kevin Haskins, no, I'm sorry. David J's bass is droney almost throughout the whole album. It's very droney if you listen to it. Songs like Haunted, When the Minutes Drag, Dog End of a Day Gone By, The Game, and even the really light, beautiful instrumental at the end called Saudade, or Saudade. Fantastic record. Fantastic record. Example of music that has a droney feel. Seventh Dream of Teenage Heaven, Love and Rockets. The next one was an album with the example of spoken word. I went with Jessica Care Moore. I don't see anyone talk about Jessica Care Moore. Jessica Care Moore is a poet, a published poet and spoken word artist out of Chicago. She works a lot with some of the conscious hip-hop artists like Common and artists like that. The album's called Black Tea. This is her debut album. And she is one of the best spoken word artists that I have ever had the pleasure of listening to. She's amazing. I've seen her live. I didn't talk to her when I saw her live, but we do talk on Facebook back and forth. And she's amazing. And if you're not into spoken word, but you are a jazz head, this is basically a fantastic example of post-bop with spoken word, very urban-based spoken word over it. So highly recommended. Black Tea by Jessica Care Moore. And this is 2000 and I want to say it's like 2015 or something like that. Anyway, you can find it online. Fantastic. Next is an example of an album with a processed instrument or processed voice. I stretched on this one. You know, I could have grabbed Zapp and Roger, you know, with the vocoder and stuff like that, or even Peter Frampton. But I wanted to do something different. This isn't technically a processed voice through a machine, but it is a self-processed voice into using the voice as an instrument, and something that probably no one's going to think of, and that is the beatbox. And this is Dougie Fresh and the Get Fresh Crew. This is the debut album from Dougie Fresh and the Get Fresh Crew, 1986, on Dania Records. This is an original issue first pressing of the album called Oh My God. And it's on Dania Reality. There's that famous Reality label. And of course it has the very famous song The Show on there, with, you know, Dougie Fresh's absolutely amazing beatbox on that. He manipulates his voice and is using his mouth to process sounds that at that time, even though the beatbox was heard before him, not like him. Absolutely innovative beatboxer. And fantastic album with processed vocals. That's where I went with that one. Number 7, a record with an artist from the Nurse for Wound list. I was very familiar with the Nurse for Wound list, and it really threw me for a loop when he showed that, because it was a brilliant question. It's brilliant. And if you don't know what the Nurse for Wound list is, Google it and look on Wikipedia, and you'll understand how brilliant it was to add this as a prompt for this, because it's fantastic. The artist is Terje Rypdal, the Norwegian jazz guitarist. Fantastic, amazing album. Whenever I Seem to Be Far Away, 1974 on ECM. Terje Rypdal. Some people say Terry Rypdal, but it's Terje. ECM, 1974. And fantastic artist. Again, look it up if you're not familiar. It's just too hard to explain. Next is record with a toy instrument. This was the hardest one. A record with a toy instrument. You know, when we're kids, we have a toy harmonica. I didn't want to go there. It was too easy, number one. Number two, I don't look at harmonica as a toy. I just don't. It's a very serious instrument. I do play, that's one of the instruments I do play fluently. I am a harmonica player. Maybe one day I'll play it on video. But I am not the best, but I do play. And I didn't want to go there. I kind of felt like I'm not gonna call that a toy. Maybe if I didn't play it, I'd say, oh yeah, it's a toy. The other thing is like a toy xylophone. Like when we're a kid, we get a toy xylophone, actually a vibraphone, because they're all made out of metal. Those little, like a Fisher-Price type of xylophone, even though xylophone's wood, vibraphone metal. And these were always almost all made out of metal for the most part. So, but they called them xylophones. And I was going to go there, but then again, you know, unless it actually said toy xylophone, a xylophone's a very serious instrument, and it is not easy to play. I've tried to play full-size xylophones and vibraphones, and it is not for me. I just can't. So I didn't want to go there because I have a lot of respect for that instrument. So I had to kind of dig deep, and what I came up with was the album Raising Sand, Robert Plant, Alison Krauss. I don't have the vinyl, I have the compact disc. I don't know why I've never picked up the vinyl. I had the compact disc for a while. I'm going to be seeing them together because they just dropped another album. Did they drop it already or they're dropping it? Anyway, in the next few months at the Santa Barbara County Bowl, the very top of Southern California. Fantastic place to see a concert. And so I'm very excited. So they have a song on here with Toy Piano. And it's credited as Toy Piano. So there you go. Raising Sand, Robert Plant, and Alison Krauss. And that's it. 1 through 8. Number 1, improvised music. Number 2, album featuring Moog synthesizer. Number 3, album with field recorded music. Number 4, album with drone sounds. That sounds drony. Number 5, spoken word. Number 6, an album with a record with processed instrument or processed voice. Number 7, record with an artist from the Nurse for Wound list. Look that up. You'll understand why that's such a brilliant prompt. And number 8, a record with a toy instrument. And there you go. Thanks, Alex. It was a great thread. Glad to participate. And see everybody soon. Peace.